haven't heard that in a while.
Okay, so I should be broadcasting right now at, if I'm not wrong, yep, on the same Ustream channel. So it's ustream.tv/channel/AAA leaders, right? So if you want to go there, I'll be broadcasting. I will not be broadcasting my face, which is really ugly anyway. And it's actually, if you go to your announcements online, you'll see it there. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to go as we. There might be feedback, yeah.
Can you see your chat message?
I won't be able to see your chat messages because I'm just broadcasting, right? So that's one thing I can't do this time.
So channels/AAA.
It's if you search for AAA leaders, then that'll it'll actually show up as a live stream, and you might have an ad as well because it is ad supported. See it? Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about. We're not going to just talk about the throat mic that I'm wearing. I can actually walk around. See, this is the reason why I got this thing, so I can walk and that thing will pick me up, and I can continue to talk and do all that kind of stuff, right? So let me just switch to my dual screen here. All right. So one of the challenges that we have when we start doing this course is everything that you're doing is from scratch, right? There is really truly no a good drag and drop program except for that program that I showed you not last week when we were doing our broadcast, but the week before, right? I said, hey, you know, there's this drag and drop program that you can use called Page, if you remember correctly. And Page, what it does is it actually allows you to format your tkinter, in kind of X and Y placement, as opposed to, from a geometry perspective, as opposed to the way tkinter does its stuff with the pack geometry manager, right? So we're not going to use pack when we're doing a game like this because pack basically what it does is it either does it in a horizontal or a vertical alignment of your buttons and your controls, which is fine if you're doing a basic control or a basic pop-up, but it's not cool when you're making a game or doing some other more advanced dialogue, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk about assignment number 3, which is I'm going to give you today officially, and it'll be due in a couple of weeks. I'm also going to give you the Place Geometry Manager today. I actually uploaded it. If you go up on Blackboard, I've uploaded an additional file on your code archive called geometry or placegeometry.zip. And if you go there, I've got a couple of files, and the main .py file actually shows you how to use the place geometry for tkinter, 100%, and how to use different buttons and labels, right? So if you're using tkinter, it's another example of how to do that as opposed to using Pygame. Okay, so we're going to be talking about assignment 3 as well. So I'm hearing from assignment 2, some of you are close to getting done. Who's not anywhere near close to getting done? Okay, you're not close to getting done. You're not close to getting done? Nowhere near? Nowhere near. Okay, so there's a couple people that are nowhere near getting done. Why is that? Because of procrastination. Okay. Procrastination is you're being recorded, right? Doesn't really matter. Right? See, throat mic.
It's on the record.
It's an omnidirectional mic, and I'm recording you, right? It's on the record. You got that? Alpha, bravo. No. At the end of the day, if procrastination is going to happen, right? So, like I said, you're getting until tomorrow night. It's not impossible to do if you put yourself to it. You can probably get it mostly done by tomorrow if you really focus on it. The challenge is going to be all the testing that you need to do. And if you remember, and I showed you last time, from a solution set perspective, you can't make a game that works and is bug-free. As an example, I went through 5 iterations, and it probably took me no less than an hour per, right? I first came up with the engine that I gave you, I put together, right? I kind of had to think it through, how to put out. So it took me about an hour to figure all that out, how the list worked and everything else. And then, bug-free again, and commented and everything else. And then I went to the second one, which was, okay, I want and I'm going through this with you so you understand, from a game creation perspective, You got to do it step by step. And we talked on the video, for those of you who actually watched it, which is like maybe like 1% of you, there's this framework that we talked about. And if you look at the slides from the previous video, and this, by the way, would be video for lesson number 5 for those people who are watching live, and for we're going to see the recording. But basically what it is if you look at what it says, the idea framework, right, is the first framework that you look at. And it applies whether it's to Kinter or whether it's Pygame. It's applicable to both, right? And then there's also the idea framework. There's the alter framework, which is what happens on the action side when it comes to how we trap events and so on, right? So those two frameworks are one way of kind of structuring your code when you start building your game. Okay, you got to think about, I got to initialize, I got to make a game loop, I got to do all these different things, right? But the other part is, how do I plan the different parts of my game as I go? I'm going to build my game, right? I'm not going to just come out of the blue, right? Or even my app. If you're making a game or an app. And assignment number 3, I'll tell you right now, assignment number 2 is a cakewalk compared to assignment number 3, all right? Assignment number 3 is a lot more challenging because of the functions that I'm asking you to put together, right? It's not because of I'm going to give you, you're going to have 90% of the code, right? It's not that. It's linking the code to the GUI. That's the challenge here. Right, and making some of these advanced functions work. And assignment number 3 has been a pig dog for some people, for the last 3 or 4 iterations of this course, right? So it's the biggest one where they struggle with it. They don't know how to do certain things, linking things together. I would advise not to procrastinate. Like if you're a procrastinator, assignment number 3, don't do it. Start now. Like as soon as assignment number 2 is wrapped up and you've done your external documentation, get right into assignment number 3 if you haven't started already. Okay. So again, we're going to build. So what happens when you make an app? You're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 iterations. And I'm getting through some of the marking for assignment number 1, and I'll tell you, and I kind of said in the video before, the challenge is that people don't read the criteria, right? So I give you an assignment, you get criteria with your assignment. Read the criteria, guys, because if you don't read it, you're going to miss something, and then you've lost some easy marks. Like if you don't give me your link to GitHub, you've lost 4 marks. I don't know where your link to GitHub is. I mean, I might have your stuff. But imagine, I really have to work hard to find your GitHub stuff. It's a lot of work. It's 65 of you. It's not like there's 10 of you, that I can really focus on and baby, right? It's not going to happen, right? So there's 65 of you, and if you don't give me your GitHub link, you lose your 4 marks. And not because I want to do that to you, you just didn't give me the information, and I got to move on, right? To be fair. So that's one of the things I noticed. The other thing is some people didn't hand in their external documentation, which is crazy. That's crazy, man. Not to your external docs. That's like all kinds of marks that you lost for nothing, right? So, and then some people didn't put their internal docs, or they missed. Like I asked you for 6 things in your header, and you put 2, your name and the file, and that's it. Well, you're going to lose 4 marks right there. 4 marks. That's insane, right? These are easy things, yeah. So, again, that's a good question. So the question is, how much for the internal revision history? And I say you should basically mention the version that you're at. So example, I'm going to use mine, okay? So here's slotmachine.1, right? So if I look at slotmachine.1, and I'm just going to pull it up right now. Okay, here it is. I only have version 1 here, right? Version 0.1, right? And then when I actually put up slotmachine 0.2, there's version .2. Right? So I give you the last version of each of the latest changes I made, almost like from my change log, right? And that's all you needed. That's all you need, right? And then for your external document, you're going to have all these little comments in your external document, like in order, so in backwards order. So you'd have the latest version. Let's say, for example, .5, right, would be my final version, right? Now, you'd have the version .5 at the top, and then 4, 3, 2, 1 in backwards order. So I can see from a changelog perspective all the stuff you've done, right? Your GitHub, I know you're laughing. Your what? All right. So GitHub has, the great thing about that is, and the reason why at the same time, right, if you notice, not only am I using version control, but I'm also using multiple versions of my file, because that way, if you start doing this properly, GitHub, your first commit will only have this. Your second commit will have this and this. Your third commit will have this, this, and this maybe, as an example, right? So you can always step back and have that extra file. You can always go back, and if anything goes wrong, you have earlier iterations, many earlier iterations of your file. Yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
How often should we do a commit to GitHub? Like every time?
No. Major revisions. For example, let's say, if I was going to do it, right, and I was working, I don't know, a couple hours, right? Every hour or two, that's when I would do it. Because you worked an hour, too, on the stuff. Your time is really important, right? So, if you don't want to lose something goes wrong, your machine crashes, you forgot to save, or whatever, you lost all that work. An hour or two gone out of your time. And then, an hour for you guys, if you're working an hour on my project, right, that I've given you, or assignment, you got like 2, 3 other things you got to do too, right? No, you're not going to get this done, right? Or you're going to forget what you did, which sometimes might be a good thing. But, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is it's good for you to, every major revision at least, I think, so in this particular case, at least 5 commits should be done in this project, the one I'm showing you here, right? But potentially more. You might have 10 commits or 20 commits or whatever it is that you've taken, because you may make some major changes, and then what you're doing is as you make those changes, like when I went through this version .5, as I'm adding stuff in, I'm putting a line of code here in my version control. I'm going, okay, I've added in this, because that's what I'm working on, right? And when I'm finished, as an example, I upload it to GitHub, right? Now, again, I'm giving you a very shortened, truncated way of doing things, right? Potentially, you could have, and I'm using 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. Potentially, you could go 0.01, 0.02, and every hour, right? It'll mark every hour. Like give yourself an alarm, right? And every hour, you do yourself a favor and put it up to GitHub. Take a break, walk around, do whatever, and then what you're showing yourself is how many bloody hours of development time you put into your project. You can tell, right? Every time you update it, and your GitHub will show you when you did it as well, right? This is going to be really important for your final. So when you're probably, most of you are going to be working, hopefully, with a partner, right, for the final, right? And again, if you haven't thought about it, we're into week 5, guys and girls. 9 weeks left until you have to get this big project done, right? And it's going to take some time to do. It's much more complicated than everything else we've done. Don't wait. Start thinking about it, plotting it out. Start planning it, what you're going to be doing. And that way, when the time comes to actually start doing it, you're going to be well on your way. Okay? So it's just a kind of a thing about version control and GitHub and all that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I saw. Overall, a lot of you used some brute force when it comes to programming. You were like, some of you are brutish. Some of you use classes. We're going to talk more about classes today. Okay? Oh, yeah. Some people are just, they like to go ahead, I guess. Okay, so let's talk about assignment number 3 before we move on, because I'm going to use this as a point of, we're going to talk about different parts of assignment number 3. Okay, so assignment number 3 is, it's not a game. Okay, so far we've done a game, we did another game for assignment number 2. Assignment number 3 is going to be this, a drawing application you're going to make. Now, why are we doing a drawing application as opposed to just another game, right? Part of it is understanding how to draw objects on the screen, programmatically, okay? Another part is understanding the different tools that you have with each of the frameworks. Now, here in the assignment I said, use the paint.py program, which I'm going to give you today from lesson 5. And the user will be able to draw on the screen with several design tools available to them. So think about a basic paint program, okay? We don't want you to make, I'm not asking you to make fireworks, okay? Or Photoshop, okay? If you're thinking about you're going to come up with a Photoshop program at the end, not going to happen, all right? It's just too much, and you're going to see why. So you make this paint program, and I'm going to give you some basic stuff. What I want you to do is use a tool strip or an icon bar. You're going to form that. Now again, you can do it in Tkinter, and you can use the Canvas tools to draw. If you look at Tkinter and Canvas, Canvas allows you all kinds of wonderful drawing tools to do. The Canvas Geometry Manager, all right? However, I'm going to give you all the majority of this code. I'm starting to transition to Pygame, okay? So this is the one assignment that you're transitioning from Tkinter to Pygame. So it's perfectly fine, and I recommend that you start practicing with Pygame in this assignment. Okay? That's the one thing I'd like you to do. PyQt, or the Qt framework, if you will, right? And it's a very common framework that also works with C++. I don't think it's a negative thing to actually do PyQt as well. I'm not going to be covering it, but there's lots of documentation out there on how to do it. There is a drag and drop, and I mentioned it before in the last video. There's kind of a drag and drop designer. It's called PyQt Designer that allows you to design stuff, drag and drop things around, even create some of the event bindings and everything else right there. And then it creates this UI file, and then from there you have to use some command line tools to convert it into a Py file, a Python file. And then from there you've got to subclass it. So it's quite complex to use PyQt with Python. Well, quite complex, more complex than other tools. But the flexibility and the things that you can do with PyQt is pretty awesome if you're going to learn that. And again, that would be a challenge if you want to learn it on yourself, on your own, all the power. And there's other, and that's why I put or others, because there's a lot of other frameworks out there that you can download and use for Python that are actually quite cool. But we're going to be transitioning from Tkinter for this assignment, like I said, to Pygame. Okay, so if we scroll down, your application will have two sections. All right, so here's the 4 marks. You'll have a canvas, an area where the user can draw and create basic objects using a selection of controls available to him through the application. Okay, so a drawing surface. And then you'll have a tool strip or icon bar, okay, an area where the user can select the tools to assist him to create a drawing and simple graphics on the canvas. Okay, sorry? Well, I'm going to talk about them, right? Pencil tool, straight line tool. But I think the challenge here is some of you get really ambitious, and I've seen this in other iterations of this course, previous iterations of the course, and you want to use Tkinter and Pygame together. Like, you know, somehow you say, well, you know what, I can probably make really cool Tkinter buttons quickly, right? Which is cool. I like that idea. And I want to use Pygame for the actual the functions in Pygame are really, really easy to do. Sorry, this thing's coming up. You know, so that way, you know, I can use both things. Well, I kind of mentioned it to you in a couple classes ago, I think around lesson 2 or lesson 3, which was you're asking for a train wreck to happen. Okay? Tkinter and Pygame both use the SDL. It's almost like using the same resources for video, right? So unless you run, and if you're good at this, if you're a good programmer, you can get this done. It's not impossible to be done, I'm saying. But the challenge is for most of you, if you try to mix Tkinter with Pygame, train wreck. It's going to happen. Your application will fail, or it won't work the way you think it's going to work, right? Because some people think about this, and and for those of you who are watching the video, all the power. For those of you who are here in class, I'm going to draw on the board. So here's your canvas, like I said. So this is your area where you're going to draw. And some people think, well, I can have this tool strip on the side that's Tkinter, right? Separate tool strip with a bunch of buttons, whatever it's going to be over here. Nice thoughts, right? The challenge is that, which one takes precedence? They're not a linked window. They're using totally different systems to manage these two windows. And I'm going to show you how to do some of this stuff over the next week or so anyway, right? Because some of you are going to be ambitious, right? I know you. But some of you are going to try and do this because it's easy. And I'll tell you right now, this is not easy to do because you need to do this in a separate thread, right? So if we're going to talk about threading and multitasking, right, for your application, this is more of an advanced way of doing things. I will definitely give you bonus marks for doing it if you attempt it and you make it work, right? But doing both these things, so here's Pygame. This is the Pygame window, right, as an example. And here's Tkinter on the side. To me, this is it's complex. All right, so please don't try and do this. I would prefer that you do this, that you do something like this. You do it all in Tkinter or all in Pygame, and all you need to do is if this is your canvas, maybe extend your screen and put two surfaces on your canvas. One that has all your buttons, and another surface for drawing. Right? It's all in the same application, and it's using one framework. That's the easier way to do it. And that's what I recommend. Okay, so you create your buttons in Pygame. They're custom buttons that you're going to have to create the graphics for and how you do the events and everything else. And there's different ways. We're going to talk about event binding and everything else and event listening for your different buttons. But they're not separate. They're together. It looks like one big window. That's what I recommend to you. And same thing with if you're going to use Tkinter and you're going to do your drawing application with Tkinter. It's one big window. You have your buttons on one side, your canvas on the other, and you can't draw on your buttons. Okay? If you can draw on your buttons, then they don't look like real buttons. Okay? So you're going to have to stop your mouse. You have to talk about boundary detection for your mouse. So when you try and click anywhere outside of a certain region, you can't. Or not even behind. Some people will do it, and then you can draw behind your buttons. Right? That's bad too. Right? You don't want that. You want it so that you can't draw past this border. Once you draw past this border, there's no drawing. Okay? It stops drawing for you. It doesn't work. Right? So those are the things you got to think about, because I've seen that before. I've seen it where you can actually, when you save this file, because you're going to be, the reason why we're doing this application is a couple of reasons actually. You're going to talk about loading and saving files. Okay, this is what you're going to learn with this one. You're going to talk about button pressing and custom buttons in Pygame, which is you need to do, right? And using some control. So it's not so much the functions, right, that we're going to be talking about in this application. It's going to be how to bind Pygame buttons with Pygame functions. That's really what it's like. And we're going to continue to do that so you get more and more into the Python and framework. Okay, so we've got these two things, and I said, look, ensure that any key controls available in the paint.py template and others are linked to icons or buttons, button controls on the tool strip. That means I don't want you to do, and you're going to see what the paint.py framework looks. Okay, the paint.py program is going to be some keyboard it's going to be keyboard-driven events where you click on a button and then you draw. Okay, I don't want that to be in existence at all for your new Paint program. Okay, it's not going to happen. It's almost like I don't want you to give me back what I'm giving you here. And I'm sorry to say this for assignment number 1, but I've gotten some stuff back for assignment number 1 is basically regurgitating the code for Dragon.py, right? So in other words, you're in a dark cave, it's dark and spooky, you have two ways you can go, left or right, and the dragon gobbles you down in one bite. Please don't do that again, all right? That would be very bad. I give you 0 marks for that. Okay, if anyone did that, 0. Because you're just basically kicking back the same stupid code that I just gave you. It's not really, you're not doing anything, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you did some work there. You're always being marked on both, right? Programming is one part of it. Creativity is what's going to get you ahead in life, right? So it's not just about your skill. Okay. So tool strip and icon bar. Again, what you're doing is you're linking these, the functionality to your tool strip. Okay. So here's the tools that I want. There's a lot of them. Okay, but you're going to get a lot of this code already, right? So I know it looks like a big list, but here we go. A pencil tool. Okay, this tool will allow you to draw freehand shape on the canvas, right? A straight line tool allow the user to select the starting point and draw a line to an ending point, right, using his mouse. An airbrush tool. Warning, airbrush tool, hard. Okay, this one student out of 10. Okay, knows how to do this properly. Just letting you know. All right, an ellipse tool, pretty straightforward, right? You draw an ellipse. A rectangle tool, rectangle, right? I mean, how difficult can that be? And you're going to get again all this code that I'm talking about. The majority of it I'm giving to you. It's not like you're going to have like nothing to work from or create it on your own. A clear screen tool or to create a new drawing. A line width tool to change the width of your brush, okay? Which is going to affect. So in other words, you're going to change a variable that's going to affect the line width of certain tools. Okay? A fill tool. Warning. Fill tool. Hard. Okay? How would you do a fill? Right? Think about it. It sounds easy, but when you're going to fill a shape, are you filling just that shape? Are you filling the background? Is the background and the shape, is it layered or is it not layered? How are you doing it? Like, it's not as easy as you think. Right? A color picker tool. So a tool that the user allows to change the colors, right? And the user should be able to save a drawing through a save button or icon and load a drawing through a load button or icon. Okay? Note, I'm not asking for menus. Okay? So if you wanted to create a menu system, and there's some of them do exist for Pygame that you can look at. You can create them on your own as well. A menu system is quite difficult to do in Pygame. Okay, it's not easy because remember, there is no framework like Tkinter. Tkinter actually has a built-in menuing system that you can use. Hence, the train wreck idea to use Tkinter and Pygame together, right? be careful. You might run yourself into the ground. Okay, so that's really it. So there's like a bunch of different tools. It looks fairly straightforward. There's internal documentation, the same kind of thing. And external documentation is very similar to what we talked about before, interface sketch and so on. Nothing's different there, and share your stuff on GitHub, okay? Now I put it in here as an optional thing. I said, use the Kinter as a floating toolbar will require the use of threading. I will give you lots of bonus marks if you try and do this. But I recommend to you for the beginning user, if you're not a great programmer and you're more of a graphic artist, right? I'll take a pause there for a second. For those of you who are like more graphically inclined, more creatively, inclined, if you're in the creative side as opposed to the programming side, don't attempt this. This is just going to be kill you, right? Yes, you can download stuff from the internet that'll make this a little easier, but again, it might take up half your code, which is I won't allow, right? So think about this. It's not an easy thing to do. Add additional tools on your tool strip or icon bar. An example I said is here is an eraser tool, a polygon tool, and other tools I didn't mention. Why? Because I know that some of you aren't going to get the fill tool. It's not going to happen, and you're not going to get the the spray can tool that I asked for. It's not going to happen.
Didn't you say you already made all those?
Who?
You said you already made all those.
Well, the majority of the code you're going to get, but there's some code. Like, for example, and that's why I said warning, the fill tool, you're not going to get the code for. You're going to have to do it on your own, right? And you're not going to get the code from, scroll up here, for the airbrush tool. Those two tools, right, are the hardest ones to get. And if you can't, I'm giving you a way out. I'm saying, hey, I know these are, crazy, and they take a lot of effort to do, but if you want to, right, I will give you a way out. You can do an eraser tool or a polygon tool or something else. Some other tool that I haven't asked for. And for everyone... What's that?
I think you should make the other one.
No, I like it this way, right? And there's a reason for it. But if I do it this way, if you do this, I'm just going to basically, for more of these tools that you do, I'm just going to sub in. So if you miss a couple of the other tools, they're only worth the same. They're not worth any more. They're worth two marks, right? So if you do these tools instead of those tools, I'm going to give you a bonus anyway. So it's going to be another way out, is what I'm saying. So you can get your stuff done. And there's tons of code on how to do an eraser tool and a polygon tool. Eraser tool is kind of, it's not as easy as you think. Okay, it's not just clearing the screen, right? So, sorry? That's if your background is white, yeah.
Oh, so you got to match it with your background?
Well,
Wouldn't it just erase right through the background color?
it could, but it depends on what you do, right? If you want to erase the actual, are you erasing the image, the rectangle?
Are you layering this?
It depends. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. There's many ways of doing this. There's many ways to skin a cat.
Erase straight to background white.
That's fine, right? That's what I'm saying. But even if you did that, even if for an attempt, I would give you bonus, right? So that's what I'm saying. So I'm not going to stonewall you here and say, well, you erased to the back, so I'm not giving you real points. No, you've tried something new. You've tied it into an event, and you've created a new icon, right? And all this kind of stuff, and you put the effort forward. You're going to get a bonus. And I try and give everyone extra marks. But again, please, if you're doing extra work or optional work, please note it in your external documentation. On that, when it comes to these buttons, okay, I'm just going to say it like this. If I was going to create a tool, and I was ambitious, I would look at something like a Fireworks or a paint program. So let me just launch Fireworks for a second, right? So this is my version of Fireworks, right? And when it comes up, we're going to see kind of the same kind of tool strip, a very basic tool strip that you can use. Okay, so here's a tool strip. You've got this tool strip right here. Now in this case, I have a kind of like a shortcut screen, if you will, right? In this particular case. So let's say if I want to look at, and we're going to talk about this later on. Let's say I look at this painting.bitmap. Okay, so here's my canvas, right? Someone did this painting, right? As an example. And I have these tools that are working on the side here. So these are the tools that I'm talking about. There's nothing that says that you can't take a program like Fireworks or Paint, capture the screen, take the buttons that exist on this thing, and use them for your own. I'm not going to say you can't do that, right? It's not about that for me, right? For me, it's not about getting these buttons to, or creating your own buttons. It's not that. It's nice, but that's not what I'm asking, right? I'm asking you to do, when you create icons or buttons, right? I haven't even asked you here for animated buttons. I didn't say, hey, make the button look like a real button. If you do, I'm going to give you a bonus, right? If it's just a flat button right now, I'm okay with that. Because it's Pygame. Pygame is difficult. You're going to have to sub in. When you hover over, you're going to do all these different events, right, for each button. So you're going to have to create a button class, theoretically, right? If you download a button class for Pygame, that's acceptable too. I will allow it, right? Because someone said, well, hey, can I use this button class that I downloaded from the internet? And then they showed me what the code is, and it's only going to take up, a few lines, right, as an example. And then they're going to reuse the button class and pop different arguments in there to make their button more customizable. I'm okay with that, right? The challenge is not the buttons, guys. The challenge is linking the buttons to the functions, right? That's the challenge. When I click on the button, this has to happen, right? That's the complexity of this assignment. Okay. Again, it's due in 2 weeks. I'll leave this up. Actually, I'm going to need it in a second. It's due in 2 weeks, so it's due on the 20th of June at midnight. Now, so far it's due on the Thursday. We'll see how that goes, right? Typically, I say to you, and remember the first assignment I said, no extensions, right? I'll be honest with you. When it comes to assignment number 3 and assignment number 4 and the other assignments, I'm not saying that I'm going to accept extensions. Like if you tell me last minute, like if you tell me like a Tuesday that you think the class is suffering, that you need an extension for another week, it's not going to happen, right? But if we talk about it, and over the course of time, you guys are having a lot of questions. For me, it's not about failing you or giving you a bad mark. It's about understanding. And if you don't understand what we're doing here, I have a problem, right? We have to figure that out because we build on every assignment builds on the last, okay, in terms of understanding. So it's worth 73 marks, right? That's the internal number of marks that it's going to be worth for the assignment. That's how many points I'm going to give you when I look through this entire assignment. But from a weighting perspective, it's worth 15% of your marks. So it's actually worth less than assignment number 2. Assignment number 2, because you're making a slot machine program, there's a lot of other parts, you're using Tkinter and everything else, it's weighted heavier because there's lots going on. Assignment number 3, even though there's some difficulties in assignment number 3, you're getting a lot of the code, which you're going to see. Right? So that's why the marks went down to 15% from a weighting perspective. Okay? I would say this is the most challenging, and people find this less interesting to do than the other work. Okay? The next one after this, assignment number 4, is going to be a side scroller. Right? So actually, that's going to be a lot better. It's going to be a lot more fun, and you're going to get a lot of the code for that too. Right? But your challenge is going to have to make it is going to be to make it your own. Okay. So again, from a breakdown perspective, when I look at the rubric, 26 marks for functionality, 25 marks for functionality, 26 marks for GUI or display, and then the rest, 8 marks for internal, 10 marks for external, 4 marks for version control, for a total of 73 marks. Okay. Any questions around assignment number 3? Again, due June 20th, midnight, for now. Okay. I've got no questions on the floor. So let's take a look now at, I want to go into a bit more of Tkinter, because right now, some of you are doing Tkinter for your assignment number 2, and we're not quite done. So I'm going to talk about Tkinter a little bit more for the next bit until we reach the break, okay? So this is kind of part 2 of my Intro to Tkinter series. And before I get into it, just because from an experience perspective, I know how this goes, I'm going